Welcome back, everyone. It's time to close out week 1 of Rings of Power with episode 3. We finally get back to Numenor, catch up with Not Dead Isildur, as he probably picks up arachnophobia, and move forward the Annatar storyline with a dose of dwarves. As always, we're taking a deep dive into the episode by analyzing the story, catching the lore references, and theorizing. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on so you don't miss future breakdowns, watch parties, and most of all, weekly Middle-earth lore videos here on Nerd of the Rings. This week has another big recap segment, followed by a scene from Season 1 where Elendil lets his son's horse Beric run off. And as I guessed, he's off to save his master a la Brego and Aragorn in the Two Towers. But before we get there, we get a nice map transition to the Broken Tower from Season 1, where we got the whole Key Water volcano bit. We can see Mount Doom in the background, and Mordor is obviously super gloomy nowadays. Beric comes across a group of orcs who want to capture him, and Beric kicks and launches one, impaling him on a tree. I gotta say, I kinda want to see how high Beric the Killer Horse's body count can get. Equine Rambo escapes into the Black Forest, which an orc says nothing comes out of alive. Given the recent renovation of Mordor, I have to wonder, is this a recent reputation? Does the destruction of all the trees in the forest make a difference? Beric finds Isildur in a cave bound up by spider webs. A fight ensues with an orc, which gets taken out by a larger spider as we see a lot of new hatchlings. Now we see this larger spider, and there were rumors that Shelob would appear in Season 2, but I don't think this is necessarily her. It seems pretty small for a being that's already been around for at least 1,000 years. More likely, I think this could be one of Shelob's children. Among her spawn are the spiders that much later inhabit Mirkwood, the ones that Bilbo runs into in The Hobbit. Judging by Shelob or her spawn here, we can, however, guess Isildur's location, likely at the Efelduath Mountains on the western border of Mordor, near what will later be known as the Pass of Cirith Ungol. Next, we catch up to Isildur's father Elendil at the funeral of King Tar-Palantir. His daughter Eärien clearly blames Muriel for her brother's alleged death. Muriel appears, and we can see behind her they have a lot of seashell wall hangings with candles for light. They really go big on the seashells, as it seems tradition to place a shell on the casket of the dead. We see Muriel, who was blinded last season, has Elendil be her eyes as to what's going on, and we meet a new character in Belzegar, a lord from the north of Numenor. This region is called Forostar in the books, and was known as a dwelling place of eagles. The name Belzegar is actually one from the books as well. There he is the 18th king of Numenor. For reference, Muriel's father is the 24th. While his Adunaic name is not glossed, it's possible this means Sword of Light, which is what his elvish name, Tar-Kalmasil, means. Muriel asks if Pharazon has Belzegar's ear, or if it's the other way around, and Elendil says the latter. We're gonna see these two get up to some shady stuff later on. Muriel gets slapped by a woman who lost her son in the battle, and I gotta think this would hit harder if it wasn't an all-volunteer force that went. If Muriel had sent a serving army, it's a lot less their decision and solely hers. But I gotta say, I love that Muriel reacts to this with such compassion. Giving the grieving mother a hug and grieving with her is such a counterintuitive yet amazing act. Next, we see Muriel hiding a bracelet from Pharazon, who says it's time for her to choose her coronation gown. Crimson for Numenor's future, or white for its past. Muriel chooses white because it's what her father wore. Pharazon pushes red to symbolize a new kind of ruler for a new day, but Muriel sticks with white. They mention that if an eagle shows up at a coronation, which is incredibly rare, it's a huge deal. People will flip out because of how awesome it is. We then get a scene of Pharazon, Belzegar, Eärien, and Kemen chatting in a pub. Isildur's buddy Valandil overhears Kemen, probably the most punchable person on the show, talking about how unfit for rule Muriel is. Belzegar talks about how Pharazon was almost chosen to rule instead of Muriel, which I'm not entirely sure how that would check out. Muriel is by rights the heir to the throne. It's not like Numenor has a senate that elects the ruler or something. Anyway, Belzegar and Pharazon chat over the chances of supplanting the Queen Regent, and Eärien hints at knowing a way to turn the tide against Muriel. It's here that Valandil comes up to confront Kemen, and it was his lines about his father that made me realize he is basically the Alfred of this show for me. We see Muriel use her bracelet key to go up to the Palantir room, and it's gone. In the background, as in last season, we get quick glimpses of presumably Narsil, Elendil's future sword, and a swan shield, a reference to Tuor of Gondolin, the grandfather of Elrond and Elros. Back at the orc camp, Adar says they've got to make certain that Sauron is no more, and we see a baby orc bundled up in its mother's arms. And in case you've ever wondered about orc reproduction, the Silmarillion tells us the orcs had life and multiplied after the manner of the children of Iluvatar, those being, of course, elves and men. And if you're wondering how elves and men reproduce, you should probably go ask your parents. Next up, we get the introduction of a big ol' hill troll. Adar calls him Damrod of the Arid Mithrin. The Arid Mithrin, or Grey Mountains, are the mountain range north of Mirkwood. This range is known for being a later home of the dwarves, where they fight a war against dragons. Adar mentions Damrod being an eater of dragon bones and killer of stone giants. No doubt the dragon bones relating to the geography of this location. As for stone giants, they are named for the stones they throw at one another, not made of stone themselves. Speaking of geography though, I have to wonder how long it took a troll to lumber down to Mordor from the Grey Mountains, presumably only traveling at night lest he turn to stone. I mentioned this in a trailer breakdown, but his name, Damrod, is actually the name of one of Faramir's Rangers of Ithilien in the late Third Age. In Sindarin, it roughly translates to Metal Hammer. Perhaps Adar gave him this name as he's the only one with any seeming elvish connection. But it still kind of feels weird to call a troll Damrod, so in my head I'm still going with Bob. Now, I'm not sure what problem Bob could have with Sauron. I wouldn't be surprised if he joins up with him instead. Just a hunch. Next, we are back in Eregion, where Celebrimbor offers aid to Durin and Disa in the form of Rings of Power, which will heal the mountain just as it healed the linden tree. Again, I'm not entirely sure how the rings will heal the mountain, but perhaps that's something we shouldn't ask for too scientific of an explanation for. We see the table represented in the title sequence set up for 7 rings to be forged. I like this little interaction between Durin and Annatar here. Although Annatar rolls a 1 on diplomacy when he says Elrond said Durin is the wisest of the dwarves. It comes across as something that could work for an elf, but not really an approach for dwarves. And it's kind of a funny moment, and honestly exactly what I was thinking, that Elrond wouldn't say such nice things about Durin. Not that he doesn't think his buddy is awesome, it just seems too flowery of a way to speak about your dwarf bro. Playing off last episode, we see Durin IV is just as stubborn as his dad, not wanting to speak to him. Now real quick, I should point out that the idea of Celebrimbor and Annatar bringing the dwarves in on the entire Rings of Power scheme is an original concept for the show. In the books, the 2 great smiths create the 7 and the 9 Rings of Power, and they're all meant to be for the elves. It's only after Sauron attacks Eregion that he takes the rings remaining there and distributes them, 7 to the dwarves and 9 to men. Given that the 3 were forged early and the magic mithril from season 1, it kinda makes sense to start getting the dwarves involved early, otherwise they'd basically be repeating the same story that was kinda rushed into the finale of last year. Annatar continues to manipulate Celebrimbor, saying Gil-galad deems dwarves unworthy of the power and has forbidden the forging of any more rings. Granted, Celebrimbor just said last episode how they couldn't forge any for men because they weren't worthy. Celebrimbor resolves to lie to Gil-galad, sending word to Linden that he's closing up his forge. I gotta say, thus far the Annatar-Celebrimbor stuff is largely clicking for me. I think Charles Edwards in particular is doing a really solid job of conveying a skilled and obsessed craftsman who sees his chance at greatness after centuries and is ready to seize it, though it blinds him to the danger in front of him. Beric and Isildur stop to find some pools of super gross water with Numenorean corpses in them. No doubt this is meant to evoke the dead marshes that we see in the 2 towers, but we aren't anywhere near that time or especially location at this point. Isildur does pick up some new boots from the encounter though. Isildur meets a girl named Estrid, and it's love at first stab. They check out a map and resolve to head to the Numenorean port of Pelargir. Pelargir will later become the main port city in Gondor, and features in a number of battles between the Gondorians and the Corsairs of Umbar. Estrid mentions she's searching for her betrothed so that Isildur doesn't get any ideas, but I'm pretty sure her story is BS. I think there's a chance this could actually end up being Isildur's wife. He will, after all, need to have some heirs from which Aragorn descends before his story ends. They find an injured guy, but it's a trap. The guy has the Adar brand on his arm and they steal his horse. Fortunately, Arondir comes in to do his cool twirly-whirly fighting, but he's kinda grumpy though. As we'll see in a little bit, Bronwyn died between seasons, so maybe Hawkeye here is in his Ronin phase a bit. He seems kinda grumpy toward the Numenorians despite majorly having his butt saved by them not that long ago. Next we see the funeral pyre for Bronwyn. And while Arondir is all sad and slow, Theo just comes up, takes the torch, sets it on fire, and turns away. It's kinda hardcore for a kid. His Witch King or Nazgul odds are definitely going up based on these vibes. We head back to Khazad-dûm where Narvi says the food merchants want to open the grain reserves. But Durin the Fourth comes in first. Apparently, being an outcast prince still enables you to skip the line. He humbles himself to his father and conveys the message about the rings and apologizes. I really like the line here where Durin talks about miners' punches landing hard, and King Durin says, "Wait till your children grow up." It's a nice moment of recognition between the two that has a touch of poetic subtlety that we didn't get a lot of in other storylines last season. Durin says he doesn't trust the whole rings thing and uses some of his father's logic from last season in his argument. Real quick, I know this is a drum I've beat before, but it still makes no sense to me that they're both named Durin. Like, you could literally call the sun anything else, and it would have been totally fine with the dwarven reincarnation lore, and more practically, just not having to keep specifying which Durin you're talking about. Anyway, turns out Bronwyn died from a poisoned orc arrow, and Arondir says human flesh doesn't easily forget the foulness. Fun fact, elves are said to be far more resilient than men when it comes to sickness and wounds. Arondir tries talking to Theo, referencing the realm of Beleriand, which was actually more a continent than a realm that was destroyed at the end of the First Age. But Theo ain't having it. He says, "You're not my dad, man," and says that they don't need to speak again. Theo then meets up with Isildur, who reveals the water fountain they're using to get water is an aqueduct. After Isildur brags about indoor plumbing, Theo has just the quintessential teenager attitude while saying, "If Numenor's so great, why did you leave?" Theo then offers to help him get back his horse, and I kinda like the potential of this dynamic between these two characters. And if Theo does indeed become the Witch King, it would be kinda wild pairing Sauron's greatest servant and the sire of the line that Sauron fears. Isildur chats up the new girl on the block, revealing that his mother died saving him, something that nobody else knows. Isildur and Theo head out and we get the reveal that Estrid has the Adar brand on the back of her neck, which she tries to get rid of by burning an even bigger mark. Isildur sneaks into the camp of those bad dudes that stole his horse before he's almost found, but Theo rolls up saying he's one of them, showing off the mark left from the Shadow Sword Hilt volcano-making key thing from last season. As Theo is nearly attacked, we find the axe of the guy cutting the tree in the background is launched into one dude's chest, and all heck breaks loose. Based on the sounds, these folks are being attacked by Ents. The Ents at one time lived all across Middle-earth and Beleriand. Treebeard name drops places like Ossiriand, Dorthinion, and Neldoreth in the Two Towers. And all the lands of Eriador were once part of Fangorn Forest. This notably changed due to both Numenorians and Sauron. Aldarion the Mariner started a great deforestation of Enedwaith and Meniriath in order to build more Numenorian ships, in around the 9th century of the Second Age. And Sauron's destruction wrought across Eriador after the sacking of Eregion would ravage the lands. Through these actions is how Fangorn ends up being just at the southeast corner of the Misty Mountains. Though notably that seems to already be the case in the show. Now, I'm sure we'll get a better look at the Ents coming soon, but I'll be curious to find out whether they're Ents, Entwives, or a mixture of both. Being near Pelargir, they are quite a long way from the forests of Fangorn. Next, we head back to Numenor where Muriel is about to be crowned ruling queen. In the books, by rights, Muriel should have become the 4th ruling queen in Numenor's history, were it not for Pharazon usurping the throne. Notice Pharazon is wearing the same color red here that he recommended to Muriel earlier. Just as Muriel goes to grab a scepter, someone in the crowd yells, "Queen of Lies." Now, a quick note on the scepter, it was indeed the symbol of the ruler of Numenor rather than a crown. The priest guy points out that only the voice of a king or queen is permitted during the ceremony. While this isn't something for coronations, it is reminiscent of something else from the books. In Numenor, they had 3 annual ceremonies. The 3 prayers, they are called. During these ceremonies, the king or queen would take a fruit offering to the summit of Menel Tarma, the holy mountain of Numenor. Many people would accompany them, all clad in white and wearing garlands. During the 3 prayers, only the king or queen would speak, as Numenorians believed only their rulers had the right to make the offerings and give speeches on the summit of the holy mountain. Eärien comes in to reveal the Palantir. As we know, the Palantiri were created by Feanor and given to the Numenorians by the elves. And as we've seen in Numenor, elves equals bad. Pharazon shows his cunning here by saying, "Oh, these are clearly lies because the true ruler would never put trust in an elvish artifact." Muriel fesses up to being its owner and says, "We need it." Elendil goes to pick it up but gets thrown for some reason, which makes the mob turn. They move to attack Muriel when an eagle shows up, flying to the great window and looking toward Muriel. As was established by Pharazon earlier, this is super rare and a great occurrence. But Belzegar starts chanting Pharazon, kinda like, "Yeah, this is what this means." And the Numenorians just go with it, which can only lead me to the conclusion that Numenorians are mostly idiots. Not only were they afraid of elves taking their jobs and enthusiastically volunteered to go to war, but when, spoiler alert, soldiers die in battle, they turn on her and go all mob at the coronation. Which also begs the question, who invited these people to the ceremony? I gotta say, Muriel is one of the characters I have mostly enjoyed so far on this show. I think the actress is doing a great job with the role. She's regal, she's wise, and the original element of her being blinded is an inspired choice to give her character a really impactful obstacle. Returning to the eagles for a moment, eagles being part of ceremonies has some precedent as well. During the 3 prayers I mentioned earlier, the great eagles would fly above the mountain, which signified Manwë's approval. So that's kind of cool we're seeing an homage to that here. Next we see some molten gold being poured, and Durin III gives Celebrimbor the mithril, and Annatar gets him to hand it over. He closes his eyes and drops it into the gold. This will no doubt be the difference in the 3 elven rings versus the rest. Annatar, being the one to physically place the mithril, places his taint upon them, leading to whatever ill comes of it. Now, I gotta say, I thought this was a pretty smooth episode. I couldn't help but notice the whole Stranger Rune storyline because of its absence here. It just feels really disconnected from everything else, so when it's not there, the episode tends to flow a little better. Hopefully, the adventures of Isildur and Beric don't start to feel like a second disconnected story. I gotta say, it does feel the pacing has been better thus far this year. It feels like things are happening at a more reasonable rate. There's still the fast travel issue, but it was nice that Durin and Disa got the invite to Eregion, and the very next episode we see that plot move forward, rather than being a week or 2 later. But let me know what you guys thought of the pacing and the show overall so far. Personally, I'm enjoying this more so far than Season 1, because it feels like we're getting some canon moments portrayed here. As I said at the end of last season, the vast majority of the show was made-up events, and the one big canon moment, the creation of the 3 elven rings, was lackluster. So seeing things like Pharazon usurping Muriel's throne and Annatar working with Celebrimbor are nice to see. And with that, we are 3 episodes down with 5 to go. Mercifully, for YouTubers making breakdown videos, those will come 1 per week from here on out. And each week we'll do our watch parties live on the channel. So be sure you're subscribed so you don't miss those, the breakdowns, and some pretty great lore videos I've got on the way. In the meantime, if you want to learn more about the Second Age, check out my playlist here. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Nerd of the Rings.